48% of Kenyans think that this country is headed to the wrong direction, according to the latest InfoTrack report. And if you look at every angle of it, the current political situation in the country is not appealing to many people in this country. And we are discussing that today in our show, The Weekly Matters. And what a guest to have better than former Chief Justice to put all this into perspective. And of course, young and upcoming lawyer, Hiba Hussein. Welcome to the show, Mr. CJ.
I don't like handshakes.
No problem. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Please, and first of all, before we go far,
okay.
I know we have a lot of things to discuss. We have so many issues to talk about. But before we all go into that, I just want to ask you one very simple question.
Yeah.
How is retirement?
Retirement? I'm not retired.
You are tired from the judiciary?
Yes, but I'm not tired and I'm not retired.
You are not tired and you're not retired.
No.
So we leave
and you
it.
don't retire when struggles continue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's good that you have brought up the word struggle. You have been a radical, quote-unquote, activist. And
why quote-unquote? I've been a radical.
Yes.
Through and through.
Through and through.
Yes.
Now, having been that radical lawyer that you have always been, and having seen almost all, and where are we today vis-a-vis where we were yesterday, and where are we heading, and where is this country right now, as far as you're concerned?
I think it's a good question, because it's, if you put it in a historical trajectory, okay, from 63, you see there's been some progress, although we don't, notice it after the Kenyatta dictatorship and then the Moi dictatorship. From the 90s, there was some opening, and right up to the Constitution, 2010, that's progress. Okay, so you have to look at how Kenya was in, say, in the 80s, and 90s, and say, have we made progress and so forth. So I actually glorify the resistance of this country, because that's the one that brings all these, developments. Like the constitution making process took almost 4 decades before we got a new constitution. So Kenyans resist, but sometimes rather quietly. But at some point you see some kind of eruption, like the so-called second liberation, like the so-called Mwakenya, right, and December 12 movement. You can track Wangari Maathai, women's rights movements, the mothers in the mothers who
of
are
the free prisoners. I mean,
yes, at Uhuru Park.
Yes, at Uhuru Park.
At Uhuru Park. So we don't track the resistance. Even students, there have been a lot of very, very successful student, movements. Like Mwakenya was basically,
Even the one that was in exile, when you also went to exile, you understand that you also joined a number of Kenyan students abroad, or either who also went to exile to do, and that is how, you guys came back, and I mean the Kenyan Human Rights Commission and all these things was formed.
Me, I never went into exile. No, after my detention, I stayed in Kenya practicing law. Defending bank.
Where do they say you went to exile? In the writings?
So that's why I'm saying reading Wikipedia and other stuff.
Yes.
I went to Canada to do my doctorate, and I had practiced actually here for 5 years, defending bank robbers, and they were all killed, so my practice closed down. So I went there, and when I was studying, that's when Section 2A happened. And then when it was repealed, I actually came back, and I joined the lawyers as I was doing research and Law Society. I was vice chair, and then afterwards
Now, talking of joining the lawyers and joining the resistance,
I
want us to ask a very simple question. The lawyers of yesteryear were seen to be a yardstick sort of for issues of within the society.
Yes.
Contrary to the current crop of lawyers, and including my sister here, what has changed? Because we see lawyers and institutions of lawyers like the LSK at the forefront on issues of public interest.
Yeah.
Of late, you see top lawyers at the forefront of individuals who are trying to mess around society.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. But you have to blame the leadership. You know, you can't blame the rank and file, you know, or the lawyers. It's the leadership even in the 90s. In 1988, for example, when we were at the Q voting,
Yes.
there is a guy called GBM Karuki, who is a retired judge of the Court of Appeal. He opposed changes that Moi was making, removing the tenure of offices of judges, attorney general, and so forth. So the Law Society, you know, spoke out. When Muite was chair, it was the second deliberation, spoke out. I, as chair of the Law Society then, I was involved in the Golden Bag. We are the ones who actually filed a private prosecution in the Golden Bag thing. So I think it depends on the leadership. Then their leadership was oppositional to Moi. But now, I don't even know what the leadership of Law Society stands for.
Yes.
I don't know.
What do you have to say about that?
The agenda thing, what was it about?
Yes, tell us.
Yeah.
What's your take on the same question that I asked?
Yeah.
I think I'll go to the introductory part of being a lawyer.
Yes.
So I'll go to the Kenya School of Law and go to the Council of Legal Education.
Okay.
So the legal profession itself, from the start, is a whole struggle before you even start practicing. So being in Kenya School of Law for a whole year, which I think the curriculum needs to be changed, because you kind of learn the exact thing that you learned in your undergraduate.
Yeah, which is a waste of time.
For me, I think it's a waste of time. And then you end up doing pupillage for 6 months. So you're getting admitted, you're in Kenya School of Law, studying most of the things that you studied in your undergraduate, and was not, for now there's even new restrictions of doing a pre-bar and, you know, all these restrictions coming up. And then you have to struggle to find yourself a pupillage center. I mean, the Law Society of Kenya knows how many lawyers are practicing, how many institutions are certified to be a pupillage center. So I'm just assuming if you pass your bar exams, you can be posted in different, you know, law firms. And
why are they failing en masse, by the way?
Yeah, and then you end up failing, then you redo the exam, you fail again, you do a remark, you fail again. So basically it's kind of, even if they're trying to say it's not a money-making scheme, it feels like it. Because I've had students or friends that have gone to the university with who are very hardworking and are being tied down with one paper, for example, which is, let's say, commercial transaction. You understand? And then getting into practice, you get bullied in court, for example, because you're a young advocate. And it's a problem because it's not even about the senior lawyers bullying you, it's the judiciary watching, the judge on the bench watching what is happening.
It's very, it's terrible. But I think you, Hiba, you have to go back also to legal education.
Yes.
The legal education that is in these law schools is very conservative.
Yes.
The legal education in the 80s and 90s in the University of Nairobi was radical in the sense that the lawyers were taught the rules, but they also taught the rules within the society that Ahmed Kadar is talking about, where you are told you cannot practice law, for example, in a vacuum.
Yes.
Okay, there are problems that are, you know, beyond the courts, and so you might be involved in masla or something else. And I think that broad approach brought lawyers to start questioning things and also get involved in, you know, in politics, because the court is a very narrow thing. It's a very, you know, narrow thing. And I also think that we never allowed young lawyers to be bullied. They were mentored. You cannot, as a judge, you cannot allow a young lawyer to be completely messed up in the court. Because once you are bullied in the court, you know, you don't go back. You might want to do something else, and you feel like, you know, incompetent and whatever.
Yes.
But I also don't know whether the professors in some of the law schools are teaching. I think the education itself is half-baked. I've met lawyers who you ask a simple question on contracts or tort, and they don't have the basic
The basics of,
the basics. So you wonder what is happening.
because there's also
in
the
law
issue
schools.
of the general university education nowadays.
Yes,
This
yes,
questionable,
yes.
Especially
Yeah.
it has become more of transactional
Yeah.
rather than academics.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, okay, we'll leave it that on there.
Mm.
Now, Willy Mutunga, there's the issue of, we have just said at the beginning that 48% of Kenyans think that this country is not heading the right direction.
No, it's not 48.
And I think they are more than that.
It's not 48.
I think they are more than that.
It's 99%.
Yes. Okay, good. I go by your figure, 99%. Now let's come to the main issue,
Yeah.
corruption.
Yeah.
We have had a situation where, right now, even the little voice against the executive is no more. In terms of opposition, in terms of who will check on the government, and corruption. Every day you open the papers. Nowadays it's no longer about millions. Even saying billions has become so simple.
It's become trillions.
I want you to take us through what you think about that and how are we likely to end up. How did we end up where we are? Losing billions and it doesn't even raise eyebrows, or even no one goes to jail for it.
Well, I think it raises eyebrows. Again, I say issues of corruption have always been resisted. Just go back to Goldenberg. Goldenberg was a scam. And the people didn't just sit and say, Kamlesh Patni and these people are innocent. There was a continued resistance. They were getting protection, of course, and it never got anywhere. Then you come to the Anglo leasing. That's what Githongo was about. He had to flee the country. But he was fighting it, all right? These others, the dams, the Eurobonds and so forth, people are fighting them. The problem in Kenya is that you don't have an authentic opposition or a leadership that can use this resistance to capture state power. Because unless you have political power,
yes,
even for you young people,
yes,
how are you going to save our resources?
Now, talking of having political power, there are people who participated in the second liberation, who are seen to be leading figures in the second liberation. And when they formed the first government that happened to be after the second liberation, they were the first people to be accused of being corrupt. Where will you put that, after you achieve political power?
It's my view is that people who are corrupt start in high schools. They don't start when they come into power. If you want to know, and you're involved in political movement, and let's say that the 4 of us here, 5 of us, we really, if you are trying to find out whether people are committed and whether they're going to change when they are seduced by political power, is to go back and look at their history. People who were smoking high school are still smoking. People who are drinking high school are still drinking. Those who are stealing are still, because you are growing up and that's when your values are, consolidated. So politics has a lot of opportunities. I was in the second liberation myself, and I still look back on people like Raitu and others. I can't believe what happened. But I now realize that they're always like that. Now it's not like they changed.
Yes. So you're saying these are people who just were there for the sake of trying to get into power in the name of, and they never believed in what they were doing at that time.
And the weakness of political parties.
Yes.
That is a major thing. Political parties here are not institutions.
Now, the former Prime Minister said, about corruption and Eurobond and all these things before 2017. And the same man who said, that Eurobond has been eaten and called it all sorts of names, was also, it's a public knowledge that he was going to go and solicit or, help the government go and get, the same amount of money or similar in this year, traveling with the president to China and all these things. Now, where does, as a country, we have people who say, we have to fight corruption, but when they get the opportunity to right wrongs, they always reverse the gear.
You know, there is, my experience in the judiciary is something called seduction of power that people don't understand. Once you get into public service, the pressures, you know, to be a thief, the pressures to be corrupt are immense. Okay? And that's why you cannot individualize it. You have to look at institutions and so forth. And that's why I keep on going back to the a political party that is different, and that will get leaders who are watched, you know, and they have institutions where you can be removed if you start stealing and so forth. But that party has to come into power to save the resources. Okay? That's what you have to think about. And you know, Raila, for example, for a long time was seen as the voice of the opposition and the alternative political leadership. All right? But I've always had my doubt whether he would have been different if he became president. I don't know. Because when you become president in a banana republic like ours, you know, there are also foreign forces that are very powerful that you have to operate within. The Chinese, the West, and so you might be a radical, but if you don't know how you're going to deal with the World Bank and IMF and WTO, how you're going to deal with the Chinese and so forth, how you identify the national interest, because you see that's the key issue. Once you identify what are Kenya's national interests, you can then negotiate on the basis of that. There are people like Nyerere who did that in Tanzania, so it's not rocket science. It's a whole question of avoiding the stupidity of signing agreements that are written in Chinese. Which idiot signs, you know, an agreement which is in Chinese? How do they read it? And so your generation will have, in my view, will have to identify these Kenyan interests, East African interests, African interests, global interests, because even America, young people are facing the same thing you're facing.
The thing is,
yeah,
the world is changing, like you said. But unlike, you know, if from the look of things, from the people who are getting to power across the globe, yeah, it's like values are being eroded. If you look at the kind, you know, America being the police of the world, so to speak, you know, the kind of people who are getting into leadership, the emergence of the far right-wing parties in Europe and some other parts of the world. How is that impacting us, you know, as what Donald Trump called shithole Africa?
Yeah, but you know, this is it's not new when you look at the history of the world. If you look at it, there is always progression and regression, and regression might result in war. Already China and America are into cyber war. You know that. You know this thing about the 5G way, and I don't know what.
Yes.
And there are these wars all over the place, whether it's Yemen, whether it's Syria, whether it's Iran, you know, being challenged and whatnot. So these contradictions of the world have a history, and sometimes they come out as a serious war that destroys empires. The Second World War destroyed the British Empire, remember?
Yes.
And the American Empire arose from it.
Yes.
So if there is another one, I don't think the American Empire will survive.
So it's basically it's an erosion of the American Empire coming in different forms.
And the right,
yes.
People also forget that the right exists because of resistance. Okay?
So we should never lose track of resisting.
Yes, because it's resisting, and like in Europe now, you find it's the far right simply because the whites are being told that is immigrants that are whatever. Even in America, it's institutionalized, you know, racism. That is the basis of it. And once you go on like that, you get into fascism, as you did in Italy and Germany during the Second World War.
Yes.
And you know, because the world now is not bipolar. The way it was when Soviet Union was an empire. It's only America that is the empire. But also it's weakening. You know, it can't police the world. So.
And Dr. Willy, coming back home,
Mm.
we have talked about the issue of corruption and all these things, and why we should need a party or institution that are strong to go against this. But I want to quote something you said sometimes back in one of your speeches. You said, the existence of courts alone provides no guarantee of justice. Yeah? Rather, it's the values and the quality of people who lead it, the aspiration and the design of the constitution that creates it. Right now, and that it's a something very serious and very true. Right now, and we're talking about corruption.
Yes.
We are not seeing a situation where, Ivo, before I come to you, I just want to put this to him so that I bring you back to the show. And we have seen a situation where people who have stolen millions, hundreds of millions or billions even being accused, getting even, what do you call in law, anticipatory bail, you know, that even they want to protect themselves from being or even arrested or investigated. How do we get what we want if even the institutions of justice cannot guarantee that?
That's a good question, but don't assume that institutions of justice operate in a vacuum, okay? You know, they don't. And obviously people who are rich will get lawyers and whatnot. But also don't forget that some of those rights you are saying are being given to rich people. They are in the Constitution. They are actually in the Constitution. And we dealt with that thing about bail bond. There's a manual. It's just that some incompetent people don't.
But how comes it's only the rich who benefit from the Constitution and not the common one? We'll come back to that. We are going for a short break.
I can tell you.
We are going for a short break,
No,
my dear.
the
Yes.
you have to do a class analysis of the issue.
Yes.
Yeah. Why the rich are in a social class, the poor are in another class, and sometimes the law favors the rich.
Which is wrong itself. Welcome back to the show. If you have just joined us, we are with Dr. Willy Mutunga, former Chief Justice, and Wakili Hiba, an advocate of the High Court, and we are discussing issues of social justice, socio-economic, and everything that's happening within +254, that is Kenya. And if you have just joined us, like I said, you can also follow the show. We are live on our YouTube channel, that is Weekly Matters, Twitter at myself at Ahmed Kadar 1, at WM, that is Willy Mutunga at Willy Mutunga, and at X Malam. Before we went for a break, Dr. Willy, we'll be talking about, the double standard of justice in this country in terms of addressing social issues. And if you have been following recently, there are emerging cases of where people are in jail for over 10 years for reasons that ought not to make them to go to jail. How do we, with that kind of justice, how do we fight corruption? That's what I asked before we went for break.
I think to fight corruption, in my view, requires great investigation, great prosecution, and a judiciary that has integrity.
Yes, 100%.
So it must be a seamless administration of justice, right? And I think if that works properly, there will be prosecutions. Okay, so there has to be a commitment that the investigation that the DCI is doing is 100% correct. Because take for example the NYS. Well, how was it investigated? You know, the Nudin takes all these people for to court, right? And then afterwards you find that there are people who are now become government witnesses, prosecution witnesses, and others whose cases have been withdrawn.
Yeah.
That is an example of very shoddy, useless investigation. Because you should do it, and once you've done it, the DPP should look at that evidence to see whether it's worth, prosecuting.
Yeah.
And then they go to court, right? And then the court should be expected to have the integrity, because if the courts are corrupt, and it's true there's corruption in the judiciary, then that becomes now the chain, the link that is weak, and I see the blame games that go on, and that's politics. That's really politics.
Now,
so you've got to have first of all the political will to prosecute.
Yes.
You must have that. That's where the problem starts.
Political goodwill.
Yes, and you must have a leadership, a political leadership, that is saying, we're going to fight corruption. But it's not the Uhuru one of selective,
but
you know, prosecution, and also where the war on corruption is about 2022. That's the problem.
In fact, I was coming to that, and it's good that it has come from you. The fight against corruption right now is seen more of fighting individuals within a system that's competing itself for 2022.
Yeah.
Are we losing the fight against corruption by doing so?
Yeah, of course you are losing. You are losing because you have these alliances between the 5 communities. Now the handshake is about how many communities? 3?
We know it's about 2 people.
No, but Kalonzo, has it Kalonzo gone in there?
Yeah. Kalonzo joined.
Yeah, and the Mudavadi will join. Okay. So if you have corruption, which, I mean, a war on corruption which is selective and political, and it's about succession, how can you ever win?
Yeah.
That's why I always tell you people that we should have the people's war on corruption, where these characters are part of the enemy, and we liquidate them.
Hiba, you practice at the High Court as
Yes.
an advocate of the High Court. Is the judiciary independent?
I ought to believe the judiciary is independent, I guess, because if you look at several judges have been investigated, the war against corruption, a lot of allegations against top judges at top courts. I think it's not 100%. We can't say the judiciary is not independent or the judiciary is independent, because if you look at the law, the judiciary ought to be independent. If we follow,
You have seen a situation where I'm sure you also follow senior counsels who every day say, you know, judiciary this, judiciary that. Is it because they make noise when they lose cases, or is it because there's genuine things to look into? Yes.
Yeah, but I think also as a litigant, if you've done your case very well and you know the law is on your side, and you can actually preempt and know, I'm going to win this case, and then the reasoning given by the, we're not saying you're anticipating maybe to win a case, but if the evidence, I mean the reasoning given by the judges is not in line with the law, then there's a problem. I think then you will actually know if, let's say, a judge has been paid, or you can't, there's specific things you cannot actually go against because the law says this. But if a judge is sitting on the bench and is giving you the reasons, and you look at the reasons and the law and they're contradicting, then there's a problem somewhere.
We have seen a situation where some magistrates are granting ridiculous bail terms like 100 million for Samburu governor, and then a day later he changes and says, you know what, what kind of
the issue of bail is, with the new constitution, all offenses are bailable. It's not like the previous constitution. And when we talk about bail, it's discretionary. It's the judge to decide, looking into, and as Dr. Willy Mutunga has mentioned, we have the bail and bond principles. So if you look at those instances, why you should be granting bail or not granting bail, it's not upon. It depends on the circumstance of the case, the person who's there. The judge has to look into several things for them to decide whether has been given. But instances where, for example, a person has been prosecuted for graft, and then the amount of bail given, for example, is 200 million, let's say, and the person is able to pay 200 million, I think even the question should be where the money for bail is coming from.
And
you understand?
you
Yeah, 100%. You can by yourself. Then that's where the problem is.
And I think that in terms of bail, it should be a uniform thing, which is predictable.
Yes.
I don't think that people should be denied bail.
100%.
Yeah, and I don't think you should give, ask somebody who is so poor to pay 5,000 when you know they won't pay.
They won't be able to.
Okay, you can ask for securities and sureties and so forth.
That brings us to the issue of alternative justice, which when you were the Chief Justice, something very radical that you brought to the Kenyans to accept the reality that the court's not the, you won't get any kind of justice. Sort of, you have other better alternative of solving the issue like the maslaha system. Maybe before I go to my next system, kindly take us through that alternative resolution system that you really encourage Kenyans to pursue.
It's in the Constitution, I think Article 159. And the statistics are only 5% of Kenyans go to the formal courts. 5%. 95% don't go there because they can't, mainly they can't afford it, they can't afford lawyers. And then there is also the issues of language. They don't see the formal courts as forums where they will get justice. So you go to a system that you trust,
Yeah.
okay, where the elders speak your language, where you know that the elders are men and women of integrity, and you can trust, you know, you get justice. And the language thing is very, very important, because you need to follow what is being said. And the African traditional justice has a lot of mediation. It's not what do we call, it's not what's the other word we use as lawyers? It's not conflictual. You won't, after you finish, people become friends.
Yes.
Okay, so you are trying not only to solve the case, but you are also trying to bring peace among two people, you know. So it's not adversarial. That's a word.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, it's
Even-
mediates
yeah,
and
it's
so
like
forth.
Even the Rwanda genocide, most of the cases were handled through
Yeah.
they call gacha. There's a word they know.
Yeah.
It's
Gashasha.
more of Gashasha. It's
Yeah.
more of the traditional, like the
Yeah, the traditional,
alternative,
the traditional ones, whether you're talking about the Somali one or the Borana one
Yes.
or the Meru one,
yes.
they have that great value of acceptability. But we are saying, you know, under the constitution, you cannot allow clans to be allowing girls who have
Yeah.
been defiled,
Yes.
or people who have killed each other and so forth, and you bring that into the African justice system.
Yeah.
It's problematic. Rapes, murders, defilement are crimes that the state has to, to come in. But otherwise, the African justice system is very genuine, because if you ever go to a Kadhi's court, for example, which is the best example in my view of a court
Yes.
where you don't have people sitting high up, others dressed this way and so
Yes,
forth.
yes.
You go to the Kadhis and you find you like Hiba
Yes.
is there, you were there, and you might not even know who the Kadhi is.
Yes.
Because it's
Yeah.
like a family
They have
court.
been there, and it's true
Yeah.
that you may not know even who the
Mhm.
man
Yeah,
is. Yes.
yeah, and so for you to believe that you are going to get justice, it's very, 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 very important. You trust that the people who are hearing the case cannot take a bribe,
Yes.
because that's what she was talking about. Independence, independence of the judiciary is about, first and foremost, judicial officers who can never think of taking a bribe.
Yes.
And then they fight these pressures, okay? Pressures from parliament, from the executive, from your community, your religion. There are a lot of pressures that, if you are a judge, you
Yes,
have to deal with.
Yes. Now,
Yeah.
Dr. Willy,
Mm.
the 2010 constitution
Yeah.
was to remedy many wrongs, more so in some part of this country
Mm.
that have been marginalized for quite a long. And one of the things that came from it was, the wrong that was supposed to be remedied was supposed to be done through the Justice and Reconciliation Commission, the TJRC. And the TJRC report today has not
Like
been-
the Wagala massacre
Like
and
Wagala
others,
massacre.
issues
Yeah.
of land.
Issues of land, the
Yeah.
Lungu report on land issues. And it's now almost 10 years since the new constitution
Are you surprised?
came into. Why are we not having a progress on all this?
Are you surprised?
I so too.
Eh? It's
Maybe
the constitution. The constitution, in my view, is like a baby that we brought to life, and then gave it to rapists and murderers and all kind of people to bring it up. So we have to see it that way. We don't have a leadership that is able to do what we wanted done. Wagala massacre is still there. It's hideous.
Almost 6 years later.
Yeah, that's 6 years later.
Yes.
So we expected this government to do those things, and I think it was naive to think so, to think that
So we
they
should not
were.
have expected
No,
that.
No,
from
no.
the
We and this is why the issue of alternative political leadership is important. You have to get people who you trust will give the people of the victims of Wagala massacre justice, even if it's after 50 years.
Yeah.
Okay? Land that has been taken. The Somali community was marginalized. You know, the NFD
Yes,
was
NFD.
marginalized.
Decision paper.
No resources and whatever. So you need to get a leadership that wants to bring this justice and this stability, you know, in the country. But if you don't have that kind of leadership, they always find a way of saying it can't be done, because the forces that we need to punish in the Wagala massacre are still in power.
And
yes,
I think it's important. It's important to note that also the marginalization of the Somali community is still going on. We can give an example of what's happening in the immigration department as we speak right now.
Yeah.
You have to go through
And also the
vetting.
marginalization of Kambas in Kitui. You know, it's not like
Exactly. You have to go through a vetting.
Nyanza.
You have to go through a vetting.
Yes.
Because as we know, even getting an ID in the northern Kenya is a problem. You have to go through vetting. So and so has to know who your dad is, your uncle, your tribe. You get an ID. And then you're telling me when I'm applying for a passport, you want to tell me everyone else will be on the queue at 3 o'clock in the morning, but after I do that, I have to go through a special kind of vetting for me to be vetted whether I am a true Kenyan or not. You understand? It's unconstitutional for me. I was even telling a colleague of mine, no one has gone to court to challenge this, because it's a continuation of the marginalization of the Somali community in this country as second-class citizens, as they may
and that's
say.
why Judge Ibrahim went to detention, because he stood up against, you know, that nonsense of special ID.
Yes.
Yeah, Ibrahim said, no, I'm a Kenyan, I'm not going to have this ID that makes me, you know, a second-class citizen.
Second-class citizen, yeah.
That story,
Screening card.
Yeah.
yeah, screening card, he refused.
And
It's
actually,
painful.
some of the judges request that you should be having that of your forefather, of your uncle.
Yeah,
of your
yeah.
Where will you get it? If I was asked
Yes, where
to get
is-
my father's ID,
Yeah.
I don't know where it
Yeah,
is.
where it is, yeah.
I don't.
So how is it? Why in your own?
It's again-
Why are these people still having that kind of mindset?
It's
colonial mindset, sort of.
the colonial mindset hasn't ended.
Yes.
Yeah, is that when you say it's the same forest and same monkeys?
Yes.
And that's why I keep on going back to the issue of political leadership. Because the Constitution itself, you are right in saying that it identifies all the problems we have and how they can be solved. You take, for example, you know, devolution. It's very, very good that Mandera gets 10 billion shillings.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Wajir 7 billion,
Yeah.
Kitui gets 7,
Yes.
you know, and Nyeri gets 4,
Yes.
because there's some kind of
Yes.
stabilization and so
Yes.
forth.
Yes.
And the constitutions are about resources.
Yes.
They're not about anything else.
Mhm.
Okay, that's why as long as resources are stolen, you won't get, you know, better healthcare, education system, you know, food security and so forth. And you've got to get people who guarantee that. So as you go, as
Do
you
you think
move,
we'll have such people in anytime soon?
they are there.
Yeah.
How come they're not coming forward? Then why are we having same, as you say, same monkeys in the same forest? Why are we not getting the good Kenyans who can change things for Kenyans?
Because
Or is the problem Kenyans themselves?
100%. Kenyans have no problem.
Yes.
The problem is the leadership. And don't underestimate that leadership. They are the ones who keep Kenyans divided. You know that.
Yeah.
You know, they can dig up the issue about Somali, there are divisions, you
Yes.
know. Even your leaders, they use clans, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
very
to
big
Yeah.
divide
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So the politics of division is what has been changed to be politics of humanity, where we are talking about issues, okay, and we become a nation, and because we are not a nation.
Right now,
Mm.
and before I come to Hiba, right now,
Mm.
there is a lot of change in the air in many African countries, being led by young people. Talk of Algeria, talk of Sudan,
Malawi.
Malawi.
Yeah.
The Arab Spring had died, you
Yeah.
know, prematurely.
Yeah.
But trying to regain again currency maybe 10 years later. Where does that leave the young Kenyans? And what should they need to learn from that?
All those uprisings,
Yes.
and Kenya is going to have one soon. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yes.
We've reached a situation where people are going to start resisting because
Yes.
of, you know, prices and whatever. Because people have seen problems.
Yes.
What is critical is that when people rise up, they must see an alternative. In Egypt and Tunisia, there was no alternative. It was the black, the Muslim Brotherhood,
Yes.
and the military.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and you see how that pans out.
And, yeah, how it
So
ended.
there was no. I think Sudan is a bit different because they are attacking the military and they are trying to basically say we need a civilian
It's been
government.
led by professionals.
Yes, and
Yes.
they have professionals, they have trade unions,
Yes.
they have student whatever, women's movements and so forth. Very, very, very great alternative leadership that is coming together as a coalition. That's the alternative that Kenya doesn't have. If you have an uprising today, it's either the military or we say, oh, Mudavadi has a beautiful face. That's, he will solve problems. So you go to the barons.
Why will Kenyans not say Dr. Willy Mutunga? Why do you think Kenyans will not say, you know, we
They
have
cannot
to,
say
work
they cannot
riches
say
for us
they
to
cannot
have
say
to
that
produce.
because you there has to be a movement and a party and an organization. You cannot in fact the notion that one person can save people is very wrong, because that's how Jomo Kenyatta came into power.
Yes.
Comes from UK, is given the leadership.
Another one says
He
not
goes to
really.
detention, he comes and you get leadership. And I always tell young people, this notion that you go looking for Kina Mutungas and whatnot is absolute nonsense. Our generation has come and is going.
Done with speed.
Yeah. So what you need to do is to start your own thing and then work with people you know. And don't bring people outside because you don't know what they are going to do.
Yes, Hiba.
Yeah.
Wakili say, Dr. says, their generation did their part, and it's up to us young people to do our bit. What do you think of that? Are we ready for the task as young people of this country?
I think we are. We are actually doing, and I think if you look at what's happening in social media, you can say we can say we are doing an active protest through social media.
Yes.
Because we bring these things out. When someone is, for example, harassed by the police, someone says a tweet and it goes viral. But it depends whether the people, what the youth are doing to kind of bring all these issues out and who's taking it. It should be like us. All-inclusive stakeholder, like stakeholders in this institution, because I feel like if the youth are doing something, and let's say we're supposed to meet in Uhuru Park today and discuss grafts, but the police is out here throwing tear gas and beating us up. You understand? There's that imbalance. But I think the youth are actually doing a good job, and we cannot underestimate the power of social media. We cannot underestimate the power of young advocates, advocating for equal opportunities, for example.
I've asked, of course, you were hearing.
Yeah.
The issue of revolutions happening in Nigeria, in Sudan,
Yes.
in Mali, and other places.
Yes.
It would be very unfair to ask him this question because he's not that braggart.
Yeah.
And I'm asking you, do you think,
Yes.
apart from being active from social media and these things,
Yes.
do you think young Kenyans are ready to come out to the streets and ask for what is rightfully theirs, if that time comes?
100%.
Because we have seen a situation
Yes.
where guys, of course I'm a believer of digital power.
Yes.
You know that. I'm a blogger.
Yes.
But
Yes.
the thing is, even bloggers
Yeah.
or digital leaders,
Yeah.
guys who are on social media,
Yeah.
bigwigs,
Yes.
like Boniface Mwangi
Yeah.
and others, have sometimes criticized young people for tweeting from the comfort of their couch
Of their
and
couch
not
and
coming
not
out
coming
when
out.
they are needed mostly.
Yes.
I want you to answer me how that can be addressed.
No, the issue is, as
Well,
much
of course
as
you can tweet,
Yes.
but we need to add about how that possible.
I think it's a matter of organization, and I
Yes.
said someone has to come in as a leader,
Yes.
and the people should follow.
Yes.
It's not like, for example, I'm tweeting from my house in Kilimani and someone's tweeting from Githurai. We don't even know each other. But if there's an organization that, like an institution that has been brought there, and we can channel our issues through that. And we, for example, if we have a meeting, we know we're supposed to be protesting or we're supposed to be, talking about our issues through an institution, then that's it. Because I think it's just a matter of coming up with a framework. Because the people are there, the people's will is there, the youths are, they're devastated. You can look at the issue of unemployment in the country.
Yeah.
You can look at the issue of corruption. You can't be sitting reading a newspaper in the morning. You're earning 30,000 and you're waking up in the morning and people are getting, you know, a 200 billion missing, 50 billion missing. Like it's a normal, you know, normal kind of thing. So I think the youth are aware of what's going on. What we lack is a framework that we need to channel our issues.
But you know, you have to accept that there are a lot of young people who are leading movements.
Yes.
Who leads the decolonize?
Yeah,
The one,
people.
you know, Samia.
Yeah.
They're young people.
Yes.
Artists.
Yes.
These are kina Mufasa,
Yes.
kina whatever
You
poets.
launched a book, do you see that you
Yes,
chief guest?
yeah, I was there.
following
Those are young people.
Yes.
Actually, it's amazing
Yes.
how many young leaders are in this country who are progressive. What you need to do is bring them together.
Yes.
Bring them together, not just in a party, but in a movement. So that, as you say, the digital gurus like you are doing exactly what the movement
Movement is doing,
wants.
yes.
You know, the one in Lamu and the Kituyo, again, is core. It's strong.
And it was a very progressive.
Yes,
that
yes.
made
And
us
and the
all
people
that-
are singing,
the
Kina
internet
Giuliani and
yes.
others. You know, you have people who sing messages of social justice.
Yes.
There are many.
Yes.
What about the cartoonists?
Yes.
You know,
Because of this
you
world.
see the graffiti and so forth. Filmmakers.
Yes.
You know, like Wanuri, the woman
Yeah.
who made that movie, and she's still struggling and whatever. So, for me, what I tell young people is that you have the leaders. It's just that you waste time thinking that Baba Wino is your role model, or Songo, or whoever.
Yeah.
So those leaders that are already engaged in something very, very powerful, those are the ones. You're not going to get them from Mars. And you have to glorify them. And you have to make sure that they stay, you know, fighting, you know, on that basis. And if some of them, I don't know, you know, like you, I know, you ran for office, right?
One time, but
Yeah, but you see, again, you don't think that is critical. For me, I think it's very critical.
Yeah.
That there is a young person who wants to be an MCA
yes.
and goes and loses,
Yes.
but still wants to do it.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Because if you become an MCA from Isli,
Yes.
you will be telling Sonko to stop,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
one
harassing
thing- yes.
hawkers and doing some stuff.
Yes.
There is a voice
Yes.
within
Yeah.
it.
And one
So-
thing many people don't understand,
Mm.
I'm not beating my own drum, but the thing is,
Mm.
before we ran for that office,
Mm.
we have been doing so many things in the neighborhood that made us to see that if we get this office, we'll be doing this better.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a movement
yes,
thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the movement,
Yes.
what I call the movement,
Yes.
is the one that enslaves leaders.
Yes.
So that when you become a leader,
Yes.
the movement makes sure that you don't sell out.
Yes.
And the selection of power does
Yes.
not make you disappear.
Yeah.
Because these cartels
Yes.
are very powerful.
I agree.
You know, you
Absolutely.
become an MCA and they come and tell you, okay, we are giving you a chopper. Will you take it?
No, of course.
So-
now, I'm being told we don't have much time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I want to,
Mm.
and before I come again to you,
Mm.
what is your advice to the young people of this country?
I've already been giving this
I
advice.
know you have been giving, but I just want you to summarize for us.
Yeah, we need.
One or two
Yeah,
things.
that's fair.
Yes.
It's first the young people must really talk about their material interests. Okay, I don't see why young people are not active in what she has talked about, the right to work, because without work you have no human dignity.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
the issues of health, quality education, okay, food security, housing, and whatever. Things that are very, 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 very important. And the young people, almost 80% of them, the majority, are the victims of it. So you organize on what I've called politics of humanity, right?
Yes.
And once you organize that way, then you make sure that the divisions are not in your movement.
Yes.
You don't want to start saying, oh, the Muslims, we are Christians, therefore we can't. No, because if you
We
are
have only one
poor,
country.
yeah,
Yes.
and if you are poor, poverty cuts across
Yes.
communities,
Yes.
religions, and whatever.
Social injustice cut
Yes.
across.
Across.
Yes.
So this politics of division or ethnicity, religion, you know, I keep on telling Hiba that they are also divided on the basis of Premier League. You see? Okay, and a lot of other divisions. They start fighting and so forth. You know, a lot of energy is wasted in the process.
Yes.
That's the politics of division.
Yes.
So the moment we start saying that we don't want kids who are dying of malaria, we don't want famine, we want women who are, you know, are equal to men, and there's, you know, there's merit and whatever. You are talking about issues and you are downplaying the divisions. When we come to the Somalis, the same thing.
Yeah.
The clans, yeah.
Big issues.
Yeah,
big
so
issue.
so the divisions.
That's why you see clan clashes for no reasons.
Even in generation.
Yes.
Even in generation. Why do we keep on saying, okay, old people are useless? You cannot say that. It depends on what they stand for.
Yes.
Because there are some young people who are useless because of what they stand for. So you go to what you started with, the values.
Yes.
Okay? That becomes very, very, very important. You can even mobilize on the basis of the Constitution. It has a very good chapter, chapter 6 and so forth. But once you do that, then, as a youth movement in Kenya and you're fighting for political power, you then build solidarities with Sudan, with Uganda, with whoever. Because this continent also needs to be liberated. That's why Pan-Africanism, people are talking about it. They're talking about African unity that can actually make Africa an empire, you know, going forward. So we have to think that way, and you've got to realize that Africans is not just the continent of Africa. You have these Somalis in Minnesota.
Yes.
They're Africans.
Yes.
You have people in Brazil. Yes. You have people in Europe.
Yes.
So the African diaspora is also very important. And the way they are being treated, like Miguna, like Mwende Mwenzi,
Yes.
you know, it's scandalous. You know, so we need to have a broad vision of 300
What
years.
is, by the way,
300 years.
Yes.
And then you cut it like the Chinese into 50-50.
Yes.
You ask yourself, where are you going to be?
In the next 50 years.
Yeah. Are you going to be slaves of the Chinese and the West? Is it possible?
It's possible.
It's possible.
Things go according to the way it is right now.
Yeah.
Now, Hiba, before I close the session for us and take back to him, the last question which we are going to end with, the issue of young people in this country. We have people, you know, brilliant minds like you know, lawyers who understand the law.
Yeah.
Where do you guys want us to be in 50 years? As the doctor has said.
I think we need.
Do you want us to remain the slaves of Chinese through SGR and all these things? Or should we do things differently? And how should we end? You have less than a minute. I'm going to take back the mic.
I think I should actually upload Kenyan youth in so many things, because I've traveled across Africa with my new job, and I've seen that Kenyan people, we have, sorry to say, but a big mouth. We don't know how to shut up. In others, I've been to Egypt, people are saying, don't speak. Tunisia, don't say this. We're not allowed to do this. You know, in Tanzania, don't say this. But I think in Kenya, the freedom of speech has just been, I think is one of the rights in the constitution that we actually have maximized in the youth.
That reminds me, I was in Addis sometimes back.
Yeah.
And we were in a session with some Ugandese, and it was a week, it was 2018, a week or so before the AU presidents meet.
Yeah.
So we are closing before the presidents meet, and you know, before they meet, there's always this issue of African leaders, women meeting, then the youth meeting.
Yeah.
Then reports are compiled, taken to the session of presidents. And we were in a hall in a very beautiful hotel in Addis Ababa. And then I raised a point, and then someone says, "Hey, don't say that." So I get it's true.
Yeah.
When we travel, I think Kenyans young people out there are outgoing and speak their mind, unlike many people of their age who come from different.
But is that the right that's the right you have fought for?
Yes.
And we haven't Kenyans haven't let it go.
Yes.
Because the people resist. That's why the cartoonists and everybody else.
Yes. Yeah.
And this issue of big mouth is great because it's we have already consolidated that gain. So we cannot lose it. Because if you keep on losing it, then you
my director is on my neck. I'm closing this. But before that, Hiba, this is for you, and he's going to take it from there. Data protection.
Yes.
You work in an environment that gives, that protects people's data.
Yes.
Right now, I came to this office, and I was told to give you ID. Everything. Where does it end? Okay, go to the government. We had been told Huduma number and all these things.
Yes.
We don't. Who is protecting our data out
Yeah.
there anyway? That's my question.
No, I
to
think
you. What should be done?
I think what Kenyans don't understand is
Yes.
we're not saying your data should not be consolidated,
Yes.
or your data should not be taken from you. Like the
Yes.
government should not be collecting data.
Yes.
What we're trying to say is there should be an institutional framework. We should have legislation that governs your data, because according to the world right now, data is the new oil.
Yes.
People are literally making millions using your own data. You can tell. I think that company called Idimas or
Even the one that
it was
was,
blacklisted by the parliament.
But they changed their name. They were called what before the 2017 election?
They were collecting our data and they're not even registered in Kenya. It's not a registered company.
Yes.
And they're
Cambridge or who?
Yeah, Cambridge Analytica.
yeah, they're
That's what I was
collecting.
looking for.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
changed
they-
the name now. They call it the
Idim or something.
Idim or something
So
like
they're
that.
collecting our data and we don't know. They were not registered. I think Parliament just found out recently and they were blacklisted. So you're looking at instances
And
where
back there,
yes,
that story.
yes,
I
we're
know what
looking.
happened.
Yeah,
They were
Kenyans
not
don't know.
blacklisted, they were whitelisted. They are not black.
Yeah, so you don't really understand. So what we're trying to say is
Yes.
we should just we have actually there's 2 bills in Parliament
Yes.
that is dusting in Parliament. No one is talking about it.
Yes.
And we're talking about, like for example in the UK we're talking about general data protections and where everyone is using it. Why don't we have a legislation in place in 2019, a country which is democratic with a very transformative constitution? We're talking about our data being collected. Give your fingerprints, you give your, now we're even talking about you're supposed to be tracked where you are. You understand all those things. So I
We
know
wanted our DNA until
the court,
said
the
no.
court said that is too much
Without
because
the law,
they're
imagine.
they're
We
interfering
wanted our
with,
DNA.
they're interfering with our privacy rights and
Yes.
all that. So we're not saying Kenya. As of now, the people who've registered for Huduma number, do they have a Huduma number?
No.
What
It's almost 2 months.
what is the essence
No
of a
one has a
Huduma
number.
number? You have your ID. Your ID number is distinct from mine.
Yes.
If I want to search your ID number, your name will pop up.
Yes.
So why do we need a specific number for that?
Anyway,
You understand?
people say it's business. We have been hearing of referendum, and I want to hear your personal view on this as Dr. Willy Mutunga. Referendum before 2022. Are we changing the constitution to safeguard the constitution, or are we changing the constitution to benefit individuals to be in power? And are we likely to have a referendum anyway before 2022? What are the odds?
Well, first of all, I think that we shouldn't be changing the constitution myself. If we are going to do anything, let's talk about implementation, because that is the key issue. We cannot start saying referendum changing this and that, okay? We need to look to have an audit of the constitution and make sure like pillars like devolution are strengthened, and we look for the weaknesses, and that's what we have to do. But the referendum is about 22, the succession.
Yes.
Yeah, 5 communities want to come together, change the law so that they can share power and dominate other communities. Okay? Constitution is not about that. And in any case, if you want to change it, you cannot change it through the the building what it's called
Building bridges initiative.
building bridges initiative
handshake.
to nowhere.
Yes.
So the constitution in this country, we have the process. So if you want to change it, we can use that process. We can't use
So basically,
shortcuts.
the building bridges initiative is a waste of public resource.
It is. It basically is, and a referendum, to have a referendum because you want to deal with issues of sharing of power. Why can't they share power without changing the constitution? The handshake is about sharing power.
Sharing
So the
power.
handshake is between who and who?
Hmm?
In your own, if you is it okay? This is for our show. This is for closing remarks.
Yeah.
What is your personal take on the handshake? In any case, that
What?
led to the building bridge initiative that which you have just said.
Publicly, I've attacked it.
Okay.
I've attacked it completely
Yes,
because
yes.
I think these are the narratives of the barons that keep people divided, and no solution it comes to the fore. People will say, oh, we got peace. Why should our peace depend on handshakes?
Yeah.
Why?
So, yeah,
Why? Because these are
What if the handshake fail? Are we going to fight?
yeah, but you are going to
That
fight.
is-
Mhm.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah, so we've got to be very, very, very careful about this leadership. I keep on saying is a very dangerous leadership. Very, 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 very dangerous. And it has been around for 56 years now. That narrative has to be changed completely.
So
and you people
yes.
have to change it. change it radically, and that's how you're going to build a new Kenya, and a Kenya that is free
Yes.
and emancipated. If you don't do that,
Yes.
one of these days you are going to be told, this is not your country, leave it.
We have heard it from the horse mouth. We'll leave it there. We have to be radical in our way we do things. We have to change. We have to have a better Kenya. And that's up to the Kenyan young people, as Dr. Willy Mutunga has said it. Him and his generation did their part. Now it's us to take up after the good work they did and make sure that we cross the finishing line. Till next time, see you. That is the Weekly Matters.